The Rise of Skywalker is a hot mess. I think that the first two entries of this trilogy are pretty decent films overall, but The Last Jedi exhausted me enough to kill my emotional investment in these movies. So when the stupid name and lackluster teasers rolled around, I could not care less about this movie. But then some more trailers showed up, and those were a lot cooler. Then the reviews started rolling in, and it turns out this thing is among the worst rated of the entire saga. So yeah, my primary emotion going into this movie was cautious excitement at best, but not apathy. This movie was kind of like a reverse Revenge of the Sith to me. Revenge of the Sith was riding on the coattails of a terrible trilogy with terrible characters, but ended up being watchable. Sure, this was because of some good original ideas, but it was mostly because of the connections to the original trilogy that let the script pretty much write itself, and gave the movie a ton of added emotional resonance despite the mediocre performances. Rise of Skywalker was riding on the coattails of a mostly solid trilogy with great production, decent characters, passable dialogue, and a big old box yet to be checked off. Give this trilogy a reason to exist. See, these were my approximate reactions to the first two movies. The Force Awakens. Well, that was an enjoyable movie with neat explosions and the second funniest ball in film history. The plot was a complete retread of A New Hope, but I don't really mind as long as the sequel doesn't rip off Empire. The Last Jedi. Well, that was a fucking crazy movie that'll probably cause some people on the internet to get kind of mad. It followed a similar plot structure to Empire Strikes Back, but the differences that were there were really significant. So I don't really mind as long as the sequel pays off and doesn't rip off Return of the Jedi. See? This trilogy had been procrastinating the originality thing for 4 years, and the burden had been crammed all the way to the final entry. And not only is that final entry a ripoff of Jedi, it's the laziest and most shameless ripoff of Jedi I could have imagined. Literally bringing back Palpatine with no setup from the previous two movies is the second dumbest thing imaginable, right behind the stupid planet he lives on. What the hell is Exegol? Are you telling me that the Jedi never found this planet, even during the prequels when the Sith were all but extinct, despite the fact that one of its extremely Force-sensitive wayfinders is guarded by like 10 guys in a random forest, and despite the fact that it somehow supports a population large enough to build and command the biggest starfleet in galactic history? And why are they all literal Star Destroyers with Death Star laser cannons? It would have at least made a little bit of sense if these were some sort of mystical force constructs or weird alien ships. And that also would have given this movie some semblance of its own visual identity, you f***ing fool! Anyway, the fact that this trilogy is just a worse rehash of the originals makes it pretty much worthless. In 10 years, nobody will be watching these movies. But I'm here to tell you that this movie and trilogy could have actually been good if one scene was different. It might have had some of the same story beats and themes as Return of the Jedi, but it would have approached them from a very different angle. Really, the biggest problem with this movie can be traced back to one of the best scenes in the last movie.
What?
The throne room scene in The Last Jedi. If Rey had agreed to let old things die and actually joined Kylo for the rest of the movie, The Rise of Skywalker could have been way better. First of all, it makes sense in character. Rey hates the First Order, but she doesn't hate Kylo. And also very clearly yearns for a sense of place in the world. If Kylo actually acted on his promise to start an entirely new order that unionizes the light and dark sides of the Force, which you could even call a final order, Rey could really get behind that, since she's seen the problems with both the Sith and the Jedi. This could even give her a reason to craft a yellow lightsaber for the fanboys. More importantly, the novelty of having a heroic character, other than Anakin, who we all knew would be evil from the start, actually fall away from the light side of the Force, would have taken the subverting expectations shtick of The Last Jedi to a whole new level. With this more complicated villain situation, heightened sense of tension between characters, there would be no reason to awkwardly rig in Palpatine or planet fanfiction, and more opportunity to actually finish off the character arcs that still hung in the air at the end of the real movie. Finn and Poe would no longer have to be extras in a story that booked them as way more important than they really were, given that they'd need to face off against one of their best friends. Unlike Return of the Jedi, this movie could also have a climax involving all the main heroes in the same place for proper closure. Pretty much any plot that takes off from here would be less contrived and stupid than what we actually got, but I'm going to outline my own plot anyway because I feel like it. So, if you don't feel like listening to what is essentially my fanfiction, you can click off the video, but here we go. Somehow, the remaining Resistance members discover a device or something that can destroy the entire First Order fleet as it closes in on the last Resistance-held planet. but it requires them to infiltrate a very heavily guarded base on one of the planet's moons. Finn, Poe, Leia, and the crew of the Falcon are chased through space, with Finn getting separated somehow. Poe proves himself to be the best pilot in the galaxy, but eventually also learns the virtues of caution and restraint, as he needs to surrender to negotiate to Rey when faced with impossible odds. Rey agrees to prepare the device, but Poe is afraid that Finn will be taken out in the process, but is sent to jail anyway. Then Finn meets up with Kylo, possibly gaining his trust after helping him face off against a secondary villain, like the traitorous Knights of Ren, who refused to work for a Jedi sympathizer. Then Finn explains that killing every single stormtrooper might not be the right thing to do, and also that Kylo himself may be taken out. See, this could even make the worst scene from Last Jedi, the one where Rose talks about pacifism after nearly killing Finn, just a little bit worthwhile. Anyway, after being given some time alone, Rey is adamant about destroying the entire fleet after finding out that the First Order killed her family. So then Kylo, Finn, and Poe all face off against Rey in an epic battle at the station where the explosion will be set off. Ultimately, Rey kills Kylo, then finally shows mercy and turns off the blast. Then, in the final shot of the movie, a Gungan Ewok hybrid jumps into the screen with 2 double lightsabers or something. The end. This is my headcanon. Hope you all enjoyed it! Bye.